Kang Day walked through the metal halls of Nexus Station with heavy steps. The massive space station floated in the center of Galaxy, home to the Galaxy Council for over 500 years. Today felt different. The air recyclers hummed louder than usual, or maybe it was just his nerves. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years now. 12 years of sitting in those cold metal chairs, listening to alien species argue about trade routes and territory disputes. 12 years of being the voice that somehow always found the middle ground when others wanted war. The humans were good at that, finding peace where others saw only conflict. It was why the Council valued them, or so Kang Day had always believed. His tablet buzzed with an urgent message from Dr. Park Jin back on Earth. She was the lead scientist studying alien biology and had been his closest friend since their academy days. The message was short but alarming. Emergency data incoming, private channel only. Trust no one else. Kang Day quickened his pace toward his private office. The halls were busier than normal, filled with delegates from dozens of species. The tall, blue-skinned Altarians moved in their usual graceful way. The insect-like Zephyrians clicked and buzzed as they communicated. The rock-like granite folk rolled slowly along their designated paths. All of them depended on humans in ways most people never talked about. When the Altarians had their civil war 10 years ago, human peacekeepers had stopped the killing. When the Zephyrian homeworld faced starvation, human agricultural experts had saved billions of lives. When the granite folks' ancient computer systems failed, human engineers had rebuilt everything from scratch. But humans were still considered the junior members of the Galaxy Council. They had been part of galactic civilization for only 30 years, while some species had been spacefaring for thousands of years. The council leaders always reminded humans of this fact. Kang Day reached his office and locked the door behind him. The room was small but comfortable, with a window showing the stars beyond. He activated the secure communication system and waited for Park Jin's data to download. What he saw made his blood run cold. The files contained medical scans, biological samples, and psychological profiles. All human, all taken without permission. The data showed detailed studies of human DNA, brain patterns, and emotional responses. Someone had been studying humans like laboratory animals. But worse than that were the project files. Human Replacement Initiative. Synthetic Emotional Response Protocols. Expendable Asset Optimization. Park Jin's voice came through the speakers, encrypted and distorted for security. Day, I found these files in a data core that crashed on our monitoring station last week. Someone was trying to delete them, but our recovery team got there first. Kang. Day stared at the screen. One file showed detailed plans for creating artificial beings that could mimic human behavior. Another outlined strategies for placing humans in dangerous situations where other species would never agree to go. A third discussed the acceptable loss rates for human personnel in various council operations. How long has this been going on? He asked. Based on the timestamps, at least 15 years, maybe longer. They've been collecting data on every human who's ever worked with the council. Medical exams, psychological evaluations, even personal communications. They know everything about us. Kang Day felt sick. He thought about all the times he had encouraged young humans to join council missions. All the times he had praised the council's commitment to cooperation and peace. How many people had he sent into danger without knowing the truth? There's more, Park Jin continued. I traced the source of these files. They came from Council Prime Veltar Zesh's personal server. This goes all the way to the top. Veltar. Zesh was the leader of the Galaxy Council, an ancient being whose species had founded the organization centuries ago. Kang Day had always respected him, even looked up to him as a model of wisdom and fairness. What do we do with this? Kang Day asked. You're the ambassador. You tell me. But Day, there's something else. I've been analyzing human participation in council operations over the past decade. We make up less than 2% of the galactic population, but we account for 60% of all dangerous missions, 60% of peacekeeping operations, 70% of first contact scenarios with hostile species. The numbers hit Kang Day like a physical blow. He had always been proud of humanity's reputation as brave and dedicated. Now he realized they had been used. "They've been sending us into situations where they expected casualties," he said slowly. "Exactly. And look at this. Whenever human casualties happen, the Council provides compensation to families and calls them heroes. But the same files show internal communications where they call these deaths acceptable operational costs and useful data points for emotional manipulation studies." Kang Day closed his eyes and tried to process what he was learning. Every human who had died in Council service, every family that had mourned a lost son or daughter, every memorial service where he had spoken about noble sacrifice, it had all been based on lies. His tablet chimed with another message. This one was from his assistant, announcing that Council Prime Veltar Jesh wanted to see him immediately for an urgent discussion about human resource allocation. "They're calling me to a meeting," Kang Day told Park Jin, "about human resource allocation. Don't go alone and record everything." Kang Day ended the communication and sat in silence for several minutes. Through his window, he could see the massive ships of various species docked to the station. Human vessels were there too, smaller than most but built with the clean, efficient lines that had become humanity's signature style. He thought about Captain Cho Ran, who commanded the human transport fleet. She had lost her brother in a Council peacekeeping mission 3 years ago. The official report said he died heroically while defending civilians. Now Kang Day wondered if the mission had been designed to be deadly from the start. He activated his personal recorder and headed toward the Council chambers. The walk felt longer than usual. Delegates nodded respectfully as he passed. Some even smiled. Were they all part of this deception, or were they as ignorant as he had been? The Council chambers were enormous, with seating for representatives from over 200 species. But today, only the inner circle was present, the dozen species that held real power in the galaxy. Kang Day was the only human in the room. Veltar Jesh stood at the center, his tall, thin form draped in the traditional robes of his office. His species had evolved from something like Earth's ancient trees, and his bark-like skin shifted colors based on his mood. Today, those colors seemed muted, almost cautious. "Ambassador Kang Day," Veltar Jesh said in his deep, resonant voice, "thank you for coming so quickly. We have important matters to discuss." "Of course, Council Prime. How may I serve?" The words felt bitter in his mouth now. How may I serve? How many times had he said those words, never knowing what he was really offering? "We need to discuss humanity's role in upcoming operations. There are several crisis situations developing, and your people's unique talents are required." Kang Day noticed the phrase unique talents. In the past, he would have felt proud. Now he wondered what it really meant. "What kind of operations?" he asked. Veltar Jesh gestured to a holographic display that showed star maps with several systems, highlighted in red. "The Helix sector is experiencing civil unrest. The borderland colonies are reporting attacks from unknown raiders. The neutral zone has 3 different territorial disputes threatening to explode into full warfare." "All dangerous situations," Kang Day observed. "Precisely. And all requiring the kind of careful, brave intervention that humans excel at. Your people have a gift for walking into dangerous situations and finding peaceful solutions. It's truly admirable." There was something in the Council Prime's tone that Kang Day had never noticed before, a kind of distant appreciation, like someone praising a useful tool. "You speak as if humans are particularly suited for dangerous work," Kang Day said carefully. "Well, aren't you?" Veltar Jesh seemed genuinely surprised by the question. "Your species has shown remarkable willingness to accept casualties in service of the greater good. Most species are quite protective of their individual members, but humans seem to understand that some sacrifices are necessary for galactic peace." The casual way he said it made Kang Day's stomach turn. "You believe humans are more expendable than other species?" "Expendable? No, I would say more dedicated, more willing to take risks that others might avoid. It's one of your most valuable qualities." Around the chamber, other council members nodded in agreement. None of them seemed to realize how their words sounded to Kang Dae's ears. "What if I told you that humans might not be as willing to take those risks anymore?" Kang Dae asked. The colors on Veltarzesh's skin shifted to darker tones. "That would be unfortunate. The galaxy has come to depend on human courage. Many of our current strategies assume human participation in dangerous operations." What would happen if humans were no longer available for those operations? Why would you ask such a thing? The Council Prime's voice carried a hint of concern now. Has Earth reconsidered its commitment to galactic peace? Kang Dae thought about the files Park Jin had shown him. About 15 years of secret medical experiments, about humans being C. The emergency session began at dawn in Geneva. President Lee Hanna looked around the circular table at the faces of Earth's most important leaders. Each person in this room represented billions of human lives scattered across the galaxy. Admiral Kim Tae sat to her right, his weathered face showing the strain of commanding Earth's space forces for 20 years. To her left, Dr. Song Min reviewed data streams from human colonies on her tablet, her fingers moving quickly across technical reports. General Yoon Sul studied tactical displays showing the positions of human military assets throughout the galaxy. Chief Engineer Nam Bo examined infrastructure reports with the focused intensity that had made him famous throughout Council space. Ambassador Kang Dae appeared on the main screen via secure transmission from Nexus Station. His usual diplomatic composure was gone, replaced by something harder and more determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Lee Hanna began, "Ambassador Kang has presented us with evidence that fundamentally changes our relationship with the galaxy. Council, before we make any decisions, I want everyone to understand exactly what we're facing." She activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The stolen files appeared as three-dimensional data structures, showing years of secret research and planning. Dr. Song Min was the first to speak. "The biological sampling data goes back to our first contact with the Council 30 years ago. They've been studying us from the very beginning." "Not just studying," General Yoon Sul added grimly. "Look at these psychological profiles. They know exactly how to manipulate human emotions, how to make us feel honored when they're actually exploiting us." Admiral Kim Tae pointed to a section of the files. "The military deployment records show the pattern clearly. Every dangerous mission, every high-casualty operation, every heroic sacrifice. They've been systematically using us as expendable troops while keeping their own people safe." Chief Engineer Nam Bo had been quiet, but now he looked up from his tablet with a strange expression. "There's something else we need to discuss, something I've never told anyone outside my department." President Lee Hanna gestured for him to continue. "The quantum fold network that connects the entire galaxy, the communication system, the transportation grid, the power distribution network, it's all built on human technology." The room fell silent. Dr. Song Min stared at him. "What do you mean? When we joined the Council 30 years ago, their technology was failing. The old systems were breaking down, and they couldn't maintain them. So they asked us to help, not as equals, but as consultants. We redesigned everything from the ground up." Nam Bo activated his own data display, showing technical diagrams of massive complexity. Every major star system in the galaxy depends on quantum fold transmitters that human engineers built and maintain. The Council thinks their people understand the technology, but they only know how to operate it. They have no idea how it actually works. Admiral Kim Tae leaned forward. "Are you saying that if we removed our people from those positions, the entire galactic infrastructure would collapse within months, maybe weeks? Communication between star systems would fail. Faster than light, travel would become impossible. The economic network that supports billions of beings would simply stop working." General Yoon Sul looked stunned. "Why wasn't this information shared with the Council leadership?" "It was," Nam Bo replied, "but they classified it above even our security clearance. I only know because I helped design the original systems. The Council leadership knows exactly how dependent they are on human expertise. That's probably why they started the replacement project. They want to eliminate us while keeping our knowledge. President Lee Hana felt the weight of this revelation. So if we withdraw from the galaxy, we wouldn't just be removing human personnel. We'd be crippling galactic civilization itself. Precisely. And here's the thing. My people have been talking. The engineers, the technicians, the system administrators. They're angry. Very angry. When word of these files spreads, I don't think I could keep them working for the Council even if we wanted to. Dr. Song Min was reviewing her own data. The pattern extends beyond infrastructure. Human medical researchers have developed treatments for diseases that affect dozens of species. Human agricultural scientists have created food production systems that feed entire worlds. Human diplomats have prevented wars that could have killed billions. And they've been taking credit for our work while treating us like expendable resources, Ambassador Kang Dae said from the screen. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every life-saving discovery gets attributed to Council science in the official records. President Lee Hana stood and walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. The morning sun reflected off the water, creating patterns that reminded her of stars. Somewhere beyond Earth's sky, millions of humans lived and worked in colonies throughout the galaxy, believing they were part of something noble and important. Admiral Kim, what's the status of our people in Council space? 847 colonies across 200 star systems, approximately 400 million civilians plus another 50 million military and support personnel. Our evacuation capabilities could move maybe 10 million people per month under optimal conditions. So a complete withdrawal would take 3 to 4 years, if we started today and encountered no interference. But Madam President, the Council won't simply let us leave. They depend on us too much. General Yoon Sul nodded. Our intelligence suggests that several Council species have already restructured their entire societies around human assistance. The Altarians have eliminated their own engineering programs because they rely on human technical support. The Yi, Zephyrians have disbanded their medical corps because human doctors handle all complex cases. What about our military strength? President Lee Hana asked. Admiral Kim Tae consulted his displays. Our fleet is smaller than most Council species, but our technology is decades ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Human ships are faster, more efficient, and more reliable. Our weapon systems are less powerful than traditional designs, but they're incredibly accurate and nearly impossible to jam or disable. Could we defend ourselves if the Council decided to use force to keep us? Against any single species, absolutely. Against the entire Council working together. He paused. It would depend on how long we had to prepare and whether we could get our people home safely first. Dr. Song Min looked up from her data analysis. There's another factor to consider. If we withdraw suddenly, the resulting chaos could cause massive suffering throughout the galaxy. Billions of beings could die if the infrastructure fails. That's not our responsibility, General Yoon Sul said firmly. They made the choice to exploit us. They created this situation. But innocent people will suffer for their leaders' decisions, Dr. Song Min replied. Innocent people are already suffering, Ambassador Kang Dae interjected from the screen. Human families who've lost loved ones in operations designed to be deadly. Human children growing up in colonies where they're being secretly studied like laboratory animals. Human scientists whose discoveries are stolen and credited to others. President Lee Hana returned to her seat. Dr. Park Jin, you discovered the original files. What's your assessment of the situation? Dr. Park Jin's image appeared on a secondary screen. She looked exhausted but determined. Madam President, I've spent the last week analyzing every aspect of this data. The Council's plans for us are clear. They want to extract every bit of useful knowledge from our species, create artificial substitutes for human personnel, and then phase us out of galactic society entirely. Phase us out? The final stages of their replacement project involve relocating all humans to protected cultural preservation zones, essentially reservations, while synthetic beings take over our roles in galactic civilization. They see us as a primitive species that happen to develop a few useful traits. Once they've replicated those traits artificially, they plan to treat us like an endangered animal species. The room fell silent. President Lee Hanna felt a cold anger building in her chest. How long do we have before they implement this plan? Based on their research timelines, maybe 5 years. Possibly less if they accelerate the program. Chief Engineer Nam Bo spoke up again. There's something else. I've been monitoring galactic communication networks, and I'm seeing increased chatter about human management protocols and transition strategies. They're not even trying to hide their discussions anymore. Admiral Kim Tae stood and began pacing. This is intolerable. We came to the galaxy seeking partnership and cooperation. Instead, we found predators who've been planning our elimination from the beginning. Not elimination, Dr. Song Min corrected. Domestication, they want to keep us as useful pets. General Yoon Sul slammed his hand on the table. Over my dead body, President Lee Hanna raised her hand for silence. We need to make a decision. Do we stay and fight for our rights within the council system, or do we withdraw completely and force them to survive without us? The council system is rigged against us, Ambassador Kang Dae said. We have 1 vote out of 212. Even if we convinced every other species to support us, which is impossible since most of them benefit from our exploitation, we'd still be outnumbered, fighting within their... Captain Cho Ran stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the largest evacuation fleet in galactic history prepare for departure. 300 ships stretched out in formation around her flagship, their engines glowing blue-white against the darkness of space. This was the 3rd convoy she had led in the past month. Already, they had evacuated 12 million humans from the outer colonies. Each journey brought families, scientists, engineers, and soldiers back to Earth. Each journey left behind empty stations and abandoned research facilities. Captain, her communications officer called out, we're receiving final boarding confirmations from all vessels. The last shuttles are returning from New Sol Colony. Cho Ran nodded. New Sol had been one of humanity's most successful colonies, home to 3 million people and the galaxy's most advanced agricultural research center. Now it was empty except for the automated systems that would shut down everything once the last human left. Signal the fleet, she ordered. All ships prepare for quantum fold jump, destination Earth. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Nam Su, looked up from his console. Captain, we're detecting council ships moving into this sector. 3 Altarian cruisers and a Granite Folk heavy transport. Are they moving to intercept us? Negative. They're heading toward the colony, probably to secure the facilities after we leave. Choran felt a bitter satisfaction. Let them try to operate the agricultural systems without human expertise. The automated growing facilities required constant adjustment and monitoring. The genetic seed banks needed precise environmental controls. The irrigation networks demanded daily maintenance. How long before they realize they can't run any of it? She asked. My estimate? Lieutenant Nam Su smiled grimly. 2 weeks before the first crop failures, maybe a month before the entire system crashes. Dr. Song Min's voice came over the ship's communication system from her position in the science section. Captain, I'm monitoring the infrastructure shutdown across this sector. The quantum fold transmitters will go offline in approximately 6 hours. The communication relays will fail within 12 hours. The power distribution network will collapse within 3 days. Any word from other evacuation fleets? Admiral Kim Tae reports successful evacuations from the Spiral Arm colonies. Captain Lee Wan has cleared all human personnel from the neutral zone. Captain Park Hae finished evacuating the research stations in the core worlds yesterday. Cho Ran looked at the tactical display showing human ships scattered across the galaxy, all converging on Earth like streams flowing toward an ocean. In 3 months, they had moved over 200 million people. It was the largest migration in galactic history. Captain, her communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from Nexus Station. It's Ambassador Kang Dae. Put him through. Kang Dae's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Choran could see the chaos of his office. Boxes were stacked everywhere, and the walls were bare where diplomatic certificates had once hung. Captain Cho, how are the evacuations proceeding? Ahead of schedule, Ambassador. This convoy brings our total to 230 million. Evacuated. We should have everyone home within 2 months. Excellent. I wanted to give you an update on the Council's reaction. They're getting desperate. Kang Day gestured to something off-screen, and the display showed recordings from recent council sessions. Cho-Ran watched as alien delegates argued frantically, in multiple languages, their translations creating a cacophony of panic and blame. They've tried everything, Kang Day continued. Offers of increased representation, promises of reform, even threats of economic sanctions. When I told them our decision was final, Veltarjesh actually offered to make me the council's deputy leader if humans would stay. Too little, too late, Cho-Ran said. Exactly. But here's the interesting part. They're starting to realize the scope of what's happening. The Zephyrian delegate stood up yesterday and announced that their medical system is collapsing without human doctors. The Altarian representative admitted that their industrial output has dropped 40% without human engineers. Lieutenant Nam Su looked up from his console. Any military response? They've discussed it, but they can't agree on anything. The Granite folk want to use force to keep humans in critical positions. The Altarians think they can negotiate. The Zephyrians are too busy dealing with their own problems to care about military action. Cho-Ran felt her respect for Ambassador Kang Day growing. For 3 months, he had remained at Nexus Station as the sole human representative, watching the Galaxy Council tear itself apart while delivering humanity's final messages. Ambassador, when are you coming home? Soon. I want to deliver one last message to the Council. Our formal farewell. What will you tell them? Kang Day's expression hardened. The truth. That they had 30 years to treat us as equals, and they chose exploitation instead. That every crisis they're facing now is the direct result of their own decisions. The transmission ended, and Cho-Ran turned her attention back to her fleet. All ships, initiate jump sequence. The stars stretched into lines of light as 300 ships carrying the last inhabitants of New Sol Colony entered quantum fold space. The journey to Earth would take 6 hours. For most of the people aboard these ships, it would be their first time seeing humanity's home world. Cho-Ran thought about her own children who had been born on colony worlds and knew Earth only from pictures and stories. Soon they would walk under Earth's natural sky and breathe air that hadn't been processed by machines. But she also thought about the worlds they were leaving behind. New Sol Colony had been beautiful, with its vast agricultural plains and crystal-clear rivers. The research station at Kepler 442 had possessed the most advanced laboratories in the galaxy. The trading post at Crossroads had been a hub of interstellar commerce for 15 years. All abandoned now. All being claimed by species that had no idea how to maintain what humans had built. Captain, her science officer reported, I'm monitoring communications from other sectors. The Helix trade route has completely shut down. Without human-maintained quantum beacons, ships can't navigate the route safely. What about the medical crisis on Altaria Prime? Getting worse. They're reporting that their automated medical systems are failing without human oversight. The plague that broke out last week is spreading because they don't understand how to operate the containment protocols we established. Cho-Ran shook her head. They had human doctors there for 20 years. Didn't they learn anything? They learned how to give orders to humans, Lieutenant Nam Su replied. They never learned how to do the work themselves. The pattern was repeating across the galaxy. Everywhere humans had provided expertise, systems were failing. Everywhere humans had solved problems, chaos was returning. The species that had exploited humanity's skills were discovering that using someone's abilities and understanding those abilities were very different things. Captain, the communications officer said, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. It's President Lee Hanna. Put her through. President Lee Hanna appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. Captain Cho, I wanted to give you an update on the situation back home. We're processing returnees as quickly as possible, but we're facing some challenges. What kind of challenges, Madam President? Housing, primarily. We've had to construct temporary cities to accommodate everyone. The good news is that our returning engineers and scientists are working miracles. They're building things I've never seen before, such as completely automated manufacturing systems, energy generators that are 10 times more efficient than anything we had before, transportation networks that make our old infrastructure look primitive. Cho-Ran was intrigued. Where did these innovations come from? That's the interesting part. Our people have been developing them secretly for years. Apparently, working with inferior galactic technology made them think about better solutions. They just never had a chance to implement their ideas until now. So we're actually better off than when we left Earth originally? Much better. Chief Engineer Nam Bo estimates that our technological capability has advanced by at least 50 years since we first joined the Galaxy Council. We learned from everyone we worked with, adapted their best ideas, and improved on everything. The tactical display chimed with an alert. Lieutenant Nam Su looked up with concern. Captain, we're detecting Council ships moving to intercept evacuation, convoys in the Outer Rim. President Lee Hana's expression hardened. What kind of ships? Looks like a joint force. Altarian cruisers, Zephyrian assault ships, and Granite Folk heavy carriers. They're positioning themselves around human colonies that haven't been evacuated yet. They're trying to prevent our people from leaving, Cho-Ran realized. Admiral Kim Tae anticipated this, President Lee Hana said. He's already dispatched battle groups to protect the remaining evacuation fleets. If the Council wants to use force, they'll discover that human defensive technology is much more advanced than they realized. Cho-Ran felt a surge of pride. Humanity had always been better at cooperation than conflict, but that didn't mean they were helpless when threatened. Madam President, what about the infrastructure shutdown? Are we really going to leave them with nothing? The infrastructure will shut down automatically when the last human purse. Council Prime Veltar Jesh stood in the emergency session chamber, watching his galactic civilization crumble in real time. The massive holographic display showed star systems going dark across the galaxy as infrastructure failed and communication networks collapsed. 1 year. It had been 1 year since the humans left and the galaxy was dying. Report from the Altarian Republic, announced Delegate Kex Thalan, his blue skin showing the stress patterns that indicated near panic. Industrial output has dropped 73%. Our shipyards can't produce new vessels because we don't understand the manufacturing systems humans installed. Our cities are losing power because the energy grid requires constant adjustments that only human engineers knew how to make. Veltar Jesh's bark-like skin shifted to darker colors. When he had founded the Galaxy Council 400 years ago, he had envisioned a partnership of equals working together for the greater good. How had it become this? What about alternative solutions? He asked. Surely your own engineers can learn to operate these systems. We've tried, Council Prime. We've assigned our best scientists to study human technology, but their designs are so different from anything else in the galaxy. They use principles we don't understand, built with materials we can't replicate, controlled by software we can't decode. Delegate Zix Varan of the Zephyrian Hives clicked his mandibles in agitation. The medical crisis is even worse. Our populations are suffering from diseases that human doctors eliminated decades ago. The treatments exist, but they're stored in systems we can't access. The medical equipment shuts down whenever we try to operate it without human oversight. How many casualties? Veltar Jesh asked, though he dreaded the answer. On Zephyria Prime alone, over 2 million dead from the plague outbreak. The orbital hospitals that humans built are still functional, but we can't get them to respond to our commands. They just display error messages in human languages. Veltar Jesh turned to the tactical display showing military positions throughout the galaxy. What he saw there was even worse than the civilian reports. General Corks, he addressed the Granite Folk military commander. What's the security situation? The massive rock-like being's voice rumbled through the chamber's communication system. Catastrophic, Council Prime. Without human peacekeepers, conflicts are erupting everywhere. The spiral war has expanded to include 6 more species. The border disputes have escalated to full-scale territorial wars. The neutral zone no longer exists. It's become a battleground. What about our own military forces? Struggling, sir. Our ships were designed to work alongside human vessels. Their defensive systems complemented ours. Their communication networks coordinated our movements. Without them, our fleet effectiveness has decreased by over 60%. Veltar Jesh felt ancient and tired. He had lived for over 800 years, but this past year had aged him more than the previous century. Delegate Morpheus, he called to the representative of the Energy Collective. What's the status of the quantum fold network? The energy being's form flickered with distressed patterns. Failing rapidly, Council Prime. The network is down in 47 sectors. Communication delays between remaining systems now average 6 hours instead of 6 minutes. The economic impact is devastating. Trade between distant systems has essentially stopped. Can't we repair the transmitters? We've tried. The humans left detailed technical manuals, but the technology is beyond our current understanding. Each transmitter is unique, custom-built for its specific location. The humans apparently made adjustments on the fly based on local conditions that they never documented. Dr. Leon Karos, the galaxy's leading non-human scientist, stood up from her position in the research section. Her species, the crystalline collective, had been studying for thousands of years before humans even developed writing. Council Prime, I've spent the past year leading a team of our best minds in studying human technology and methods. I need to make a confession that shames me deeply. Speak freely, Doctor. We've been utterly dependent on human innovation for decades without realizing it. Every major advance in medicine, engineering, agriculture, and even theoretical science over the past 30 years can be traced back to human research. We thought we were collaborating with them, but actually, we were just following their lead. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Karos continued, her crystalline form dimming with what her species expressed as sorrow. Human brains process information differently than any other known species. They make connections between seemingly unrelated concepts that produce breakthrough innovations. They see solutions where we see only problems. They imagine possibilities that we never consider. Surely other species have made contributions, Veltarjesh protested. Incremental improvements, yes. Minor variations on existing themes. But revolutionary advances, paradigm shifts that change entire fields of knowledge, those came from humans. We were taking credit for their work while treating them as junior partners. Delegate Jin Salar of the Trading Guild stood to speak. His species had been master merchants for millennia, but even they were struggling now. The economic situation is beyond recovery, he announced. The trade routes that humans maintained carried 60% of galactic commerce. Without them, entire economic sectors have collapsed. Worlds that depend on imported food are facing starvation. Industrial, planets can't get raw materials. Resource worlds can't export their products. What about the attempts to force humans to return? Veltarjesh asked. General Corks's form seemed to slump. Complete failure. We sent joint task forces to 3 human colony worlds that hadn't finished evacuation. We intended to prevent their people from leaving and negotiate from a position of strength. What happened? Human defensive technology is decades ahead of anything we possess. Their ships are smaller than ours, but incredibly fast and agile. Their weapons are precise enough to disable our vessels without destroying them. They rescued their people and left us floating in space with dead engines and empty fuel tanks. How is that possible? Human ships were always smaller and less powerful than ours. That was apparently by choice, not limitation. When they designed ships for council use, they built them to complement our existing fleets. When they built ships for their own defense, they used entirely different principles. Speed over armor, precision over raw power, intelligence over brute force. Veltarjesh accessed his personal communication system and reviewed the desperate messages that had been arriving daily from across the galaxy. Planetary governors begging for human assistance. Species leaders offering anything for the return of human expertise. Even former enemies of the Council asking for help in contacting Earth. Has there been any response to our diplomatic overtures? He asked. Delegate Kex Thalan looked embarrassed. We've sent over 300 formal communications to Earth requesting negotiations. The only response was a single message from their ambassador Kang Day. What did it say? The galaxy had 30 years to treat humanity as equals. You chose exploitation instead. Now you'll learn to exist without us. That's all? That's all. Every subsequent message has been ignored. Veltarjesh stood and walked to the great window that looked out over Nexus Station. The view that had once shown hundreds of ships from dozens of species now showed mostly empty space. Many species could no longer travel to the galactic center because their ships couldn't navigate without the quantum fold network. The irony was bitter. The Council had been planning to phase out humans and replace them with artificial substitutes. Now they would give anything to have them back. "Dr. Karos," he said, "what about the human replacement project? Can't we accelerate the development of synthetic beings to fill critical roles?" "I shut down that project 6 months ago," she replied. "After studying human cognitive patterns more carefully, I realized it was impossible. Human creativity isn't just about intelligence or knowledge. It comes from the way their brains evolved to handle uncertainty and chaos. You can't replicate that artificially, so we have no alternatives?" "None that I can see. We built our civilization on the assumption that human expertise would always be available. Without them, we're facing systemic collapse." A new alarm sounded in the chamber. The tactical display updated to show 3 more star systems going dark as their infrastructure failed completely. "Council Prime," General Corks reported. "I'm receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim colonies. The Helix sector is requesting immediate humanitarian assistance. Food supplies are running low, and their transport ships can't navigate to trading partners without the quantum fold network. What assistance can we provide?" "Very little, sir. Our own supply lines are failing. Most of our relief ships are stranded in systems where the navigation beacons have gone offline." Veltarjesh felt the weight of billions of lives on his consciousness. As Council Prime, he was responsible for the welfare of every sentient being in galactic civilization. That responsibility had once been manageable because humans had always been there to solve the problems that seemed impossible. Now the impossible problems were piling up, and there was no one to solve them. "How long before complete systemic collapse?" he asked. Dr. Karos consulted her data displays. "At the current rate of infrastructure failure, most star systems will be isolated where..." President Lee Hanna stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, humanity's new orbital capital, watching the impossible sight before her. Council Prime Veltarjesh's ship hung motionless in space, surrounded by the largest diplomatic fleet in galactic history. 2 years had passed since humanity's exodus from galactic civilization. 2 years of watching their former partners descend into chaos while Earth's solar system transformed into something magnificent and unprecedented. "Madam President," Admiral Kim Tae reported, "we've identified ships from 47 different species in the Council delegation. They're broadcasting continuous requests for permission to enter our space. What about weapons? Their ships are completely unarmed. Many of them appear to be converted cargo vessels. Intelligence suggests they've scrapped their weapon systems to make room for gifts and tribute." Lee Hanna turned to Ambassador Kang Dae, who had returned to Earth 6 months ago when Nexus Station's life support systems began failing. "What do you think, Kang? Are they sincere?" "They're desperate," he replied. "I've been monitoring galactic communications. 17 species are facing complete societal collapse. The Altarian Republic has lost governmental control over half its territory. The Zephyrian hives are dealing with medical crises that threaten their species' survival." Dr. Park Jin looked up from her analysis console. "The biological data I'm receiving is alarming. Disease outbreaks are spreading across multiple worlds because they can't operate the medical systems we left behind. The agricultural failures are causing famine on planets that were prosperous just 2 years ago." Through the massive viewport, Lee Hanna could see the evidence of humanity's transformation. Earth's orbital ring was complete, a massive structure that dwarfed anything in galactic civilization. New ship designs that looked like works of art moved gracefully between construction platforms. The asteroid mining operations in the outer system harvested resources with efficiency that made galactic technology look primitive. Chief Engineer Nam Bo approached with his latest status report. "Madam President, our technological advancement continues to accelerate. The quantum processing networks are operating at 200% above projected capacity. Our new propulsion systems are ready for testing, and the deep space sensors have mapped every star system within 500 light-years. Any threats to Earth?" "None. If anything, our security has never been stronger. The defense platforms we've constructed could protect our solar system against any conceivable attack. Lihana nodded. The past 2 years had proven something remarkable. Humanity was not only capable of surviving without the galaxy, they were thriving. Cut off from galactic civilization, human innovation had exploded into breakthroughs that seemed impossible. Madam President, the communications officer announced, Council Prime Veltarjesh is requesting personal audience. He says he comes, not as a leader, but as a supplicant. Lihana considered the request. The being who had once dismissed human concerns as emotional overreaction now wanted to beg for help. Allow him to dock, but he comes alone. No weapons, no guards, no recording devices. 20 minutes later, Veltarjesh stood in Unity Station's reception chamber. The ancient being looked smaller than Lihana remembered, his bark-like skin showing stress patterns that indicated deep exhaustion and despair. Council Prime, she said formally. This is unexpected. President Lihana, he replied, his voice carrying none of its former authority. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I come to ask for your help. Our help? Ambassador Kang Day stepped forward. 2 years ago, you told us that humans were useful because we had acceptable loss rates and emotional manipulation vulnerabilities. Now you want our help? Veltarjesh's skin colors shifted to darker tones. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We didn't understand what we had until we lost it. What do you mean? Lihana asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. We thought humans were just another species with some useful skills. We didn't realize that you were the foundation holding our entire civilization together. Without human innovation, our technology stagnates. Without human diplomacy, our conflicts escalate into wars. Without human compassion, we can't even help. Our own people survive disasters. Dr. Park Jin displayed a holographic map showing the current state of galactic civilization. Red zones indicated failed systems, orange showed critical emergencies, and yellow marked areas of declining stability. Less than 30% of the galaxy showed green status. The spiral war has consumed 12 star systems, she reported. The medical crises have killed over 50 million beings. The infrastructure failures have left hundreds of billions without reliable power, food, or transportation. And you blame us for leaving? Ambassador Kangday asked. No. Veltarjesh said quietly. I blame us for driving you away. We had 30 years to build a real partnership with humanity. Instead, we chose to exploit your strengths while planning your elimination. Lihana studied the ancient being who had once held absolute power over galactic civilization. What exactly are you asking for? We're asking for humans to return to the galaxy, not as junior partners or useful assets, but as equals, as leaders. As the teachers, we should have recognized you as from the beginning, and in exchange? Anything you want. Full control over council policies, leadership positions in every major organization, territory, resources, technology, whatever humans need to rebuild what we destroyed. Admiral Kim Tae stepped forward. You're offering us control of the Galaxy Council? If that's what it takes. Our pride has cost us everything. We're willing to set it aside if it means saving what's left of galactic civilization. Lihana walked to the viewport and looked out at humanity's achievements. The orbital cities sparkled with lights powered by energy sources that surpassed anything in the galaxy. Ships moved through space using propulsion systems that made quantum-fold technology look crude. Manufacturing platforms produced materials with properties that defied galactic understanding of physics. Council Prime, she said finally. Humanity has spent the past 2 years discovering something important about ourselves. What's that? We don't need the galaxy. We thought we did. We thought being part of galactic civilization was necessary for our advancement and security, but we were wrong. She gestured toward the display showing Earth's solar system. Look at what we've accomplished in 2 years of independence. Our technology has advanced by decades. Our economy is more prosperous than ever. Our people are happier and more productive than they've ever been. Veltarjesh's bark-like skin shifted to even darker colors. Are you saying you won't help us? I'm saying that humanity has learned the value of independence. We've learned what we can accomplish when we're not constantly solving other people's problems. Dr. Song Min joined the conversation, her tablet showing economic data. The resource analysis is clear. Earth's solar system contains everything we need for continued expansion and development. We can support a population 10 times our current size without leaving this star system. But what about the billions of beings who are suffering? Veltar. Jesh asked. Innocent people who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions about humanity? Lee Hana felt the weight of that question. It was the same moral dilemma they had faced 2 years ago when deciding to leave. You're asking us to return to a galaxy that exploited us, studied us like laboratory animals, and planned our eventual elimination. You're asking us to sacrifice our independence to save civilizations that never respected us. Yes, Beltarjesh said simply. I'm asking humans to be better than we were, to show the compassion and wisdom that we never did. Ambassador Kang. Day looked skeptical. And if we refuse? If we decide that humanity's future lies in independence rather than galactic involvement? Then galactic civilization dies. Within 5 years, maybe 10, the infrastructure failures and conflicts will reduce most species to pre-spaceflight technology. Billions will die. Entire worlds will become uninhabitable. The chamber fell silent. Through the viewport, Lee Hana could see one of humanity's new exploration ships preparing for departure. It was heading toward Andromeda, carrying the first human expedition to another galaxy. There is a third option, she said finally. What do you mean? Humanity doesn't return to the galaxy. Instead, selected representatives from galactic civilizations come to humanity. Veltarjesh looked confused. I don't understand. Lee Hana activated a holographic display showing detailed plans for massive orbital habitats. We're prepared to offer refugee status to populations from failing worlds, not as subjects or servants, but as students and partners in building something better. You would accept galactic refugees? Under specific conditions. First, any species that joins us must completely renounce the Galaxy Council and its methods. Second, they must accept human leadership in all matters of technology and policy. Third, they must commit to genuine cooperation rather than exploitation. Admiral Kim Tae stepped forward with his own data. We estimate that we could support up to 50 million refugees in our orbital habitats within 10 years. They would live alongside humans, learn from human methods, and contribute to human projects. And the rest of the galaxy? The rest of the galaxy can save itself, or not. That's no longer humanity's responsibility. Dr. Park Jin Dispiel,